أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم الحمد لله رب العالمين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Dear brothers and sisters, this is your brother Imam Abdul Azeez, and we want to continue our conversation regarding the goals of Ramadan, or the goals in the month of Ramadan. As you know, we mentioned the God consciousness being first goal for the month of Ramadan, and this is found in the verse of the Quran where it says, 183, لَعَلَكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may develop self-restraint. In this particular verse of the Quran, Allah uses the particle Allah, meaning perhaps or maybe. Why does He use perhaps or maybe? Because it's not a definite. It's not a definite that you are going to develop taqwa. It's not a definite. Everybody's not going to make it because it requires a real hard effort. It requires an effort that doesn't require you to have some great level of knowledge. You don't have to be a person of high status, but it requires that you make this effort with all sincerity, and that it's a sincere effort, that it's an effort that is first found in the heart, and then it's heard on the tongue, and it's seen in our actions. So the development of taqwa may not necessarily be the conclusion for everyone. So Allah uses the particle لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ in hopes that you will develop God consciousness, because everybody's not going to make it. After all the people around the world that are fasting Ramadan, we have the majority of people that are not. And so look at that. These people, they're still here during the period of Ramadan, but they have not observed the fast. There are people who are not observing it. There are people who are not thinking about fasting Ramadan, but they're here during Ramadan. And so that group in and of itself is a group that have just not, they don't fall into that category of people developing taqwa. But then we have the Muslim that thinks that fasting is just about not eating and drinking. And know for sure that the fast, dear brothers and sisters, is about more than just eating and drinking. It's a behavioral fast. And so developing taqwa on that account becomes something that is most necessary. But it also requires some actions. So in this instance, if you think it's just about food and drink, you miss the whole purpose of the month of Ramadan. The whole purpose of the month of Ramadan is so that you may set the goal of developing taqwa and complete it. We ask Allah for that help. We ask Allah to assist us in doing so. Many people are under the misconception that all I have to do is not eat and drink until sundown, and then I can do whatever I want. In that instance, we're not developing taqwa. Taqwa is like a shield. The Prophet ﷺ said, it says, Siyamul Jannah, that fasting is a shield, like the shield that you would have on the battlefield. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that instance to help us develop our taqwa as a shield, so that when the time of Ramadan is over, we are still acting as though we're fasting. Our behavior is still consistent with that. The Prophet ﷺ said that he who does not abandon ill speech and evil deeds or deeds of lewdness, Allah has no need for them to abandon their food and drink. So it's important for us to understand that Ramadan in and of itself, with that first goal, to develop our taqwa, that it's a behavioral practice that sticks with us and it causes us to act a certain way. And that Ramadan in and of itself is not all about food and drink only. It's about developing the behavior that we can take on into the following months, so that in Shawwal we're still have the behaviors, in Dhul Hijjah and in Dhul Qa'dah and all of these different months, Safar and in all of these other months after Ramadan, Muharram, we have the same behaviors that we had during Ramadan until we get back to Shaban and we get back to Rajab and we get back to all of those different months, and then we're at Ramadan again, inshallah ta'ala. But we went from Ramadan to Ramadan with behaviors that are consistent with fasting. May Allah help us to that. We say Ameen. And so we look at this idea, dear brothers and sisters, and we follow this pattern that we want to reach our goal. And by reaching that goal, we're developing a behavior, not just of the abandonment of food and drink, but the abandonment of bad taste, the abandonment of bad behavior, the abandonment of bad speech, or the abandonment of listening to things that are no good. And we make an effort to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all the things that we do. And so be mindful of that, dear brothers and sisters, that Ramadan and its first goal, developing taqwa, is about more than just food and drink. Food and drink is just one of the things that we do. It's one of the outstanding features, but the most outstanding feature is the developing taqwa in our behavior. May Allah help us to that we say Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.